Hi, I'm Dave Van Oss, Agricultural Markets Manager for Libro Credit Union. Libro is very excited to be this year's presenting sponsor for the Virtual Outdoor Farm Show. We truly hope that your farm business finds great value with this upcoming session.
We all like to think of farms as great places to live and work. But the headlines tell us they can also be dangerous places to work and play. People are injured or killed every year because they've become trapped in grain. A spike in the number of grain entrapment fatalities in 2015 prodded producer groups and industry organizations into action. Their goal was to reduce and hopefully eliminate these kinds of fatalities in the future. The first need they identified was to raise awareness. Rob Gobet is the Agricultural Health and Safety Specialist with the Canadian Agricultural Safety Association.
It's really important to raise awareness about this type of hazard because if a person was to get entrapped in grain, the odds of them self-rescuing are minimal, and there is a really high fatality rate, unfortunately, associated with grain entrapment.
Industry organizations worked with the Canadian Agricultural Safety Association and later the federal government to develop training programs and resources, such as the BeGrainSafe Mobile Training Unit. Built by the Prairie Agricultural Machinery Institute in Humboldt, Saskatchewan, the trailer began rolling across Canada to events in 2017.
Well, this mobile unit is really the heart of our BeGrainSafe program. It is only a part of a much larger program that appeals to children, producers, as well as firefighters. The awareness end of things, we have several small tabletop displays available for borrowing or rental through our association, as well as for the firefighter training, we've got several training props that assist with the training itself, and it really aids in getting these guys up to speed with the proper techniques.
The trailer is part of a multidimensional awareness and training program aimed at reducing the risks of grain bin entrapments to farmers, bystanders, and rescuers. All too often, the people first on the scene to help become victims themselves.
There's a real risk to the rescuers. Statistically, I believe it's 2/3 of people injured in grain fatalities are actual rescuers. So it's really important to have the content of our training course, use the proper techniques and equipment to get people out safely.
Since this training resource has hit the road, it has attended dozens of events and training sessions for producers and firefighters. The BeGrainSafe mobile unit has traveled to shows as far west as Grande Prairie, Alberta, and Saint-Louis, Quebec. One feature that always draws a crowd is a simulated grain entrapment and rescue involving a life-size mannequin and real grain. The simulation demonstrates how quickly a person can become entrapped and how complicated the rescue immediately becomes.
It really is a graphic demonstration, and it's amazing how many people we talk to at these trade shows that are producers that have either had a close call or unfortunately lost a family member to a grain entrapment. It's surprising how close to home these incidents hit and how frequent people can relate to that. The comment I get most often is that people cannot believe how quickly the mannequin or the trainees sink in flowing grain. When grain is flowing, it behaves much like quicksand, and you only have a few seconds to react, because once you're past your knee level in flowing grain, you're stuck, you cannot self-rescue, and you need to be rescued at that point. We have several messages associated with the grain handling and storage. A first message would be, if you keep your grain in good condition, the odds of you needing to go into a bin are greatly reduced. So when grain is out of condition, it tends to crust up on the surface. It does not move very well in your movement systems. So that's often what happens, is there's a clog in the system. The producer is rushed for time more often than not, and then they're not thinking straight, and then they just decide to go in and unclog the system. The second thing to remember is that grain bins are confined spaces, and there are specific procedures that are required actually by law to enter a confined space. So you need not only entry procedures and trained staff, but obviously you do not want to go into a grain bin on your own. Always have a spotter on the outside that does not enter, and someone that's aware of how to shut down the system in case of an emergency. Also, with entering a grain bin, you want to have emergency procedures. So make sure that spotter knows how to shut down the system. You want to make sure that it's locked out, and you want to get help underway as soon as possible. That's your standard 911 call or a direct call to your emergency hotline if you're away from a 911 area.
A key resource that has emerged from this initiative is specialized training courses for first responders. In many parts of Canada, volunteer firefighters are the first people to show up when someone gets caught in grain. Without adequate training, they can easily be enticed into dangerous situations because they know the victim as a neighbor or friend.
Well, grain entrapment has its own set of hazards that your standard firefighter does not have the skill set to perform. So it's very important for the first responders to have the proper grain rescue training and use the proper techniques.
The organizations behind this safety initiative have no idea how many accidents they have helped prevent, but they do know that the training and awareness has saved lives once an entrapment occurs, so their efforts are making a difference. If you're interested in organizing a training session for your area or inviting the BeGrainSafe trailer to your event, contact the Canadian Agricultural Safety Association. The association can also provide tabletop demonstrations and resources for smaller settings. We all have a role to play to make sure our farms and grain handling facilities are safe places for everyone.
The main thing that I would like people to take away from these demonstrations is that agricultural activities are consistently among the top most dangerous jobs in Canada. So we all just want to make sure that we go home at the end of the day the way we showed up.